Hello, and welcome to the Noble Public Schools Foundation Election Forum. Today, we're going to be hearing from our candidates from House District 20, Representative Sherry Conley and Steve Herberger. Seeing that there are no challengers from other political parties in this election, the June 30th election will be the final election for House District 20. All of our questions today have been submitted by constituents of House District 20, so these are your questions to your candidates for representative. Okay, we would like to welcome Representative Sherry Conley. You have 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kristen, and I want to thank the Noble Public Schools Foundation for Excellence for doing this. Hello, everyone. I'm Sherry Conley. I'm the sitting representative for House District 20. I am part of House leadership as an assistant majority whip. I have a bachelor's degree in general studies with studies in political science, law enforcement, criminal justice, psychology, sociology, and of course I'm a certified educator as well. I have a master's degree in education administration, 27 years as an educator. I spent 16 years in the classroom, 2 of which as an administrator. And I am pro-life. I'm endorsed by the NRA. The last 2 years, I have spent all of my time working on many issues, K-12 education, higher education. I've done some law enforcement, criminal justice work. I've done some work in ACEs or trauma-informed training. I've done literacy and dyslexia work, and there's many more to list. Everything that I do has been from a family's first perspective, and that even includes the things that someone might not interpret as being family, but even when it comes to commerce and healthcare, everything that I do comes from family first perspective. I'm a board member for Frontline Family Solutions, which is a public-private partnership that serves families in House District 20 and the kids at school, Pauls Valley and Purcell, and then also Newcastle. I have served on legislative task forces, and we work with stakeholders to find solutions to issues that face our state.
15 seconds.
Thank you, like early childhood and trauma-informed care. And my promise this time, as it was last time, is to preserve the Oklahoma values and to protect our constitutional rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll be hearing from Steve Herberger. Mr. Herberger?
My name is Steve Herberger. I am, obviously I'm a father and a husband. Been married for 21 years. I have 2 daughters, one 18 and one 24. I also have a grandson who is 3 years old and about to be a grandfather again, who is going to be a girl. So we're excited about that. I have been, I'm also on the CASA, I'm a CASA volunteer, and I have been self-employed for well over 20 years with different locations, including franchises. And I spend a great deal of my time, obviously, working my business, which has been quite challenging during this COVID experience with having to try to keep my employees fed and being able to keep their mortgage payment and rent payment and bills paid. So it's been, you know, I come from a completely different background. I'm not a teacher, nor did I go through that process as far as the education. I am, and I know this is an education, or Noble education hearing, and I am just a businessman. And I decided to run for this because I feel like there's a great deal that needs to be done between jobs and healthcare and education. We need to look at this completely different than we look at. And I'm concerned about free speech and our civil liberties. You know, obviously today there's a lot of hot topics going on, and I think they need to be addressed. For me, it's incredibly important that we do something today.
15 seconds.
Otherwise, we're going to be jeopardizing our future. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move into our questions. Each one of you will have 1 minute, or I'm sorry, we'll have 2 minutes to respond. So our first question, the Oklahoma State Department of Education spends millions of dollars each year on testing to determine a school report card. This data is then used to grade public schools with no regard to their student populations or demographics. Many colleges and universities have reduced or eliminated testing as they indicate that a test score does not provide accurate data as to what students are capable of achieving. The massive expenditure of tax dollars could be added to classrooms in a tangible way. Share with us your thoughts on standardized testing. Mr. Herberger, we will start with you.
I'm not for necessarily a standardized test because I think what we've seen in our education system is we're not getting the best results out of our students currently, and how the system is set up. You know, funding, I understand being part of how well the students are doing in the classroom. And I think that we have to, as a community, understand what it is we're wanting out of our children. And we have to make sure that we continue to set goals that our children get the top-notch world-class education, which they're not currently doing. And it's a concern. You know, I have a young man that was from Vietnam that stayed with us as a foreign exchange student, and he actually went to one of our schools a grade higher. And he, you know, I asked him after a week, you know, how's your experience? And he kind of embarrassedly said that this is much easier than it is in Vietnam. School there is very difficult, and because they have very high standards. And what standards they use, it's obviously it's a communist country, and we don't want to be a communist country, but we certainly need to have standards for our students in which they're held accountable and the school's held accountable. I don't know that we currently have that system set in place that does a great job at this point.
Okay, Representative Conley.
Thank you. That's a really good question. So currently the state spends about $15 million on testing materials. And so obviously there's a lot of things that we could do differently for our state and use that money in different ways. And so what I would like to see is a change from a one-day snapshot where the teachers feel like they have to spend half of the year focusing on how to take a test that really only grades them on one day. I think that maybe a benchmark system to where we test them at the beginning of the year, find out where their gaps are, and then test them at the end of the year and see if those gaps have been filled would be maybe a better way of judging how well our schools are doing. I don't think that it's fair to the schools to use those test scores to judge how the schools are doing. Obviously there needs to be some accountability, but just to use a one-day snapshot of what the kids have done, you know, that one day, that's really not the way we need to be doing things. I agree that we need to make sure that we have rigor in schools and that the kids are being taught the skills that they need. One of the things that we need to be doing is looking to the future, and the skills that the kids are going to need in the future are not necessarily what we're focusing on. And so I think that the career techs can play a really big, important piece in that. And we continually need to be going over the skills that we're teaching our kids and adjusting those to meet the needs of our, thank you, to meet the needs of our future workforce and to make sure that they have the skills in order to be able to survive in a very high-tech world.
Okay. Our next question revolves around our locally elected school boards. Our locally elected school boards has specifically been chosen by their constituents to make decisions for their local school districts. For the last 2 years, Noble and Newcastle Public Schools, along with 239 other school districts, have struggled with the legislature to maintain our district's rights to local control over our school calendars. Many of those in power have pushed to eliminate 4-day school weeks and reduce local control. And with the COVID-19 situation happening, now districts are being told to prepare multiple school calendars. Considering the added financial stress of our districts and that they're now facing due to the downturn of Oklahoma's state economy as a result of an oil and gas crisis and a global pandemic, here is a two-part question. Where do you stand on the 4-day school week? And do you believe local school calendars should be controlled by local boards of education or by the legislature and the State Department of Education? Representative Conley, we'll start with you.
Well, of course, everyone watching, if you're from Noble and Newcastle, you know exactly where I stand on 4-day schools. It is up to districts to be able to decide what's best for them, for the legislature to come in and try to determine what is best for a school district is, just overstepping their boundaries. I believe that communities, parents, stakeholders, school boards, school leaders, teachers, everyone, they need to be able to make their own decisions as to how, what their calendar looks like. I love the idea that the State Department is, looking at possibly allowing for even more flexibility with the COVID situation. But that just tells me that if they're willing to do it now under these circumstances, then they know that it can be done at other times as well. I worked very hard this last session to make sure that those rules didn't go into place so that the waivers would be required for this coming up school year and for subsequent school years after that. So I am completely on board for local control, and we definitely need to make sure that the legislature isn't dictating to the different communities as to how to run them, because every district is different. The needs of every community is different, and the school boards need to be able to take that into consideration. Did I answer both parts of that?
Yes, I believe you did.
Okay, good, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Herberger?
As far as the 4-day school day, I'm not for it. I think it needs to be a 5-day school day. We have to do what benefits the children, and the shorter amount of time they're in school, I don't think that's a benefit. I think that we have to make sure we require higher standards of our kids, and our kids need to get the most out of every day in school and every hour that's in school. Part of one of the struggles, I think, is you look at some of the class or the curriculum that takes place in school, and there's a lot of opportunity to improve some areas, including what I call real life education. Starting from grade school through junior high and high school. The kids need to learn, starting when they're in 6th grade, as an example. They get an allowance, what to do with the allowance, how to save money, the proper uses of money. Going into 9th grade, looking at when they're going to start a job, learning how to interview, learning what interview questions are, learning how to behave, how to talk to elders, and how to dress, what their experiences should be going into high school, learning how to get a loan for a car, rent, mortgage. All these things are real life education that needs to be added to the curriculum, and I don't think we need to take away days for that. And as far as the school board should have a lot of control over what's done in their own district. It's incredibly important that parents and school board decide for their own children, because you're the ones who are going to care most for those kids on how their education is being done.
Okay, while Oklahoma has made some progress with regard to teacher pay in our state, the fact is that the operational dollars for our public classrooms continue to be reduced going into this year. Our state is expecting large budget shortfalls this next fiscal year due to the recent struggles of the Oklahoma oil and gas industry and the overall economic decline. This means that there will be fewer dollars to go around for all schools to share. Oklahoma has a constitutional duty to provide a free public education to all children of the state. What ideas do you have to increase the operational dollars for public schools? Mr. Herberger, we'll start with you.
This could be a long answer, so I'll try to condense it. First of all, as far as jobs are concerned, and the oil and gas has always been an incredible part of Oklahoma's history and current. We generate a lot of income, but we have to diversify as a state. And right now would be an opportune time as a legislature to get out there and help sell the state. Go to these companies that manufacture in China and other parts of the world and get them to come here in Oklahoma. I mean, we're 46th on cost of living. We have a very good work pool, a lot of land we could build here and diversify our economy to allow larger tax revenue to come in so that we don't get hit as hard when the oil and natural gas takes a hit. And it's important that we start that process. And as part of the legislature, you know, it doesn't matter how many bills you pass or how many bills you put on the floor every day. It's about what you get done. And getting done is part of getting things done is going to be trying to get some of these companies to come here to provide good jobs. I mean, we have a lot of rural areas that could use great jobs, great paying jobs. And that helps with that process of getting more tax dollars for education. Secondly, we have to go through and take a look at what we currently spend. Is there any redundancy in the school district? In the school system? Do we overpay, or do we have any projects we started 20 years ago that are not necessary today? I think you have to analyze the entire system, break it down, and determine if we spend too much money, if we don't spend enough money in certain areas, before you make a determination on how much you can increase anything. Is it necessary to go after more money? Or do we have enough already in the system that we can use for, I guess I'm cut off, for schools, sorry. Told you it'd be a long answer and that was abbreviated. Doing the best job.
Representative Conley.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a really good question because I don't think that we will ever be able to say that education is fully funded. I think that there's always room for improvement. And so we just have to do the best we can with what we have. We have an amazing commerce department. I know a lot of the people that work in the Oklahoma Commerce Department, and they are doing everything that they can. I talk to them almost daily where they have been to other states trying to recruit. One of the things that we really need to do is focus on our small business. I mean, that's the backbone of our economy. And so small business growth is really something where we need to focus. I think that also, let me think, there was something I was going to say and now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, Matt Pinnell, our Lieutenant Governor, he has done a really great job of trying to rebrand the state. And I think that one of the things that we need to focus on is, rather than talking about what is wrong with Oklahoma all the time, I think that we need to do a better job of talking about what is right with Oklahoma. Mr. Herberger mentioned that we have a really low cost of living, and I think that is a really great selling point that we need to make sure that we are putting out there. And there's so much talk about our bad schools and bad teacher pay, and we need to talk about the things that we've done to increase teacher pay and really work on lifting up our state and encouraging our Commerce Department to get out there and work hard. Continue to work hard in bringing other businesses. And then, of course, like I said, supporting small business growth.
15 seconds.
The only way to increase our general revenue fund is to bring more money in, and that's to have more businesses. And so we're just really going to have to work very hard in increasing how many businesses, and of course to diversify, because relying on the GPT is not the way that we need to go. We've made a mistake in putting all of our eggs in that one basket, and diversifying is very, very important. So those are just a few of the things. Thank you.
Okay. The next is a two-part question. Should virtual charter schools that receive taxpayer dollars be held to the same standards as traditional community public schools academically and physically? And do you support the use of public tax dollars going to fund private schools through the use of vouchers or other scholarship programs? Representative Conley, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you. Virtual charter schools need to have the same requirements as any other public school. They call themselves a public school, so they should be required to report the same way. And they're the people that own their businesses. You know, there's some issues there about how much money they're making off of public tax dollars. And so that definitely needs to be something that we continue to work on. We've had a couple of bills over the last legislative session to try to start working on those issues, but that is definitely something that we're going to have to continue working on. We're not anywhere near finished with that. Public tax dollars, I do not believe need to go to private schools. The public dollars are there to support public schools, and we are bound constitutionally to take care of our public schools, and especially with all of the tax cuts, that, I mean, that's not even a conversation that we need to be having. I completely support parent choice for education, whether it's virtual, homeschool, public, private, charter schools, whatever a parent chooses, however a parent chooses to educate their children, that should be their choice. But to use those public dollars for private schools, it should not be done.
All right, Mr. Herberger?
I'm trying to remember both parts of the question, but I know the private schools, whether or not tax dollars should be used for that. Is that one of the questions?
Yes, so the questions are, should virtual and charter schools that receive taxpayer dollars be held to the same standards as traditional public schools academically and physically? And should public dollars be going to fund private schools through vouchers or scholarship programs?
Okay. As far as private schools, if there's a child that's in a poor district that, you know, it's a difficult area for them, a bad area, where they're not getting the best education, or I certainly think they have the opportunity and should have the right to go to any school that benefits them. And if where the money is going to come from, if tax dollars is the only way it can be donated, instead of them going to the public school, allows them to go to the private school, then it should be. Because that child is the key has to be the child comes first. That's the only thing that matters. And you have to put that first, and making that determination for the system. You see this a lot of times in some of the poorer areas where the kids, either because the school is more disruptive or because of how the facilities are, it's difficult for a child to learn and get ahead in life. I think they should be owed an opportunity to get a better education. And as far as the charter schools should be held to certainly standards if they're getting money for the taxpayer. And those standards, you know, if they're the same as public education, that's fine. Accountability is what matters. And if they're producing better results in the public school system needs to do a better job. If they're not doing as well as public schools, then people will lose interest in going to the charter schools and go somewhere else. So if that answers your question.
Okay. Many districts are experiencing difficulty in providing internet service for distance learning during this pandemic, as they have many housing areas in their boundaries that don't have cell service or internet service. This creates an environment for education that is not equitable for rural students during this pandemic. How do you suggest the state of Oklahoma improve these opportunities for our districts and students moving forward? We'll start with you, Mr. Herberger.
How to improve the internet service for children?
How the state improves the opportunities for our districts and students moving forward, seeing that so many of our rural students don't even have access to cell phone service or internet service where they live.
Well, I mean, I guess you'd have to take a look at each district as far as its, if it doesn't have cell service, what we could do to help provide that. I mean, again, what dollars go into the education system? Do we have any money available to help in some of those areas if that's part of what education is going to be for? If we need to provide that for them, then we have to find it in the budget, right? I mean, we have to take a look at that, and that could be an overall analysis of what we currently spend and the money that we spent. Is there any place that we're spending money again that we could possibly use for the rural services if this is something that's necessary, depending on what the school year looks like coming up because of this COVID-19 or anything else that might come along. it has to be something that comes out of the education system, certainly, if that's what it's going to be for. And how much money are we saving by not turning on the lights or the air conditioning at the high school? You know, if we're going to be out, can we use any of that money to go towards internet service or helping provide that internet service for a student in a rural area?
Okay. Representative Conley?
Thank you. So this is a really good question. This is something that the governor has made a priority of his. We have a couple of legislators in the House that this is a priority of theirs, and we have some legislation that we're actually working on trying to get internet service out to all the rural communities. For those communities that currently don't have that accessible to them, what we need to work on is making sure that we provide, so like with some of the COVID money that the schools have gotten and the state has gotten, we need to be using that money to provide hotspots to those families that don't have it. I have seen some reports that some of the other states across the nation, that's what they're doing. They're using their money to provide hotspots and making sure that every student has a computer at home and has that availability to them. So yeah, it's something that we definitely, as a state, we need to make that a priority. And I believe that that is very important to the governor. He has made his IT thing has been a kind of a contentious thing for some of us in the House, and yeah, he's made that a priority, and we have several legislators that are working with him on his team to try to help that be a reality for our, I believe it's a 10% maybe for Noble, I think is what I heard, that the families, 10% of them didn't have access to the internet. And I'm sure that was very, very difficult on the kids, the families, and the teachers, and everyone trying to make that work out during this time. So we need to be on the ball, making sure that we're getting that done pretty quickly, so that in case we do have a flare up, that we have those issues already addressed before kids are stuck back at home having to do their work from home.
Okay. We're going to move topics here and talk a little bit about some medical issues. So what is your understanding of State Question 802 as it pertains to the following? If the federal government decides to lower the federal match from 90% to 80% or even less, is the state of Oklahoma going to be forced to come up with a difference? For example, year one, the federal government puts in $900 million and the state puts in $100 million. For a total of $1 billion into healthcare funds for Oklahoma. Year two, the federal government says that they can only do an 80% match. Does the state of Oklahoma have to find an extra $100 million? Representative Conley, we'll start with you.
Absolutely, they do. That's one of the things that those of us in the legislature, we really tried to push passing it through policy rather than sending it to a state question. State question changes our constitution, and I mean, even with it now passing at a 90-10 rate, we are still going to have to come up with that 10%. They're estimating there's around 200,000 people that are going to be signing up for the Medicaid expansion if and when it passes, and so that 150 to 200 million, I think it's really probably closer or maybe over 200 million that we're going to have to come up with. The funding is not there, and we are going to be tasked with finding that $200 million in February of 2021. And so, because this goes into effect July 1 of 2021. And so we will not have much time in order. Of course, they'll start working on it. If it passes June 30th, the A&B committee will get right on it and they'll start working on it. But there will be cuts to other agencies, and you will see deeper cuts to all of the agencies across the board when this passes. So yes, absolutely, we will be required to make up that money.
Okay. Mr. Herberger?
Yeah, the way I understand it, that's correct. Anywhere from 150 to $300 million, and we're constitutionally obligated to have a balanced budget, so we would have to pay for it, and that's correct. It'd have to come from somewhere. And I think that the approach on healthcare has to be changed. We should look at healthcare in a completely different way. One is that, as a state, we should require the doctors and healthcare and hospitals to be transparent in all of the cost that anyone's going to incur when they go to the doctor. Like you're like everybody else. You go to the doctor, you're not sure what everything's going to cost. You get a bill after the insurance has paid so much of it, and you pay the rest. And things like that have to end. We have to, as a state, move towards, I think, and help people, especially in rural areas or poor areas, go towards a telehealth system. Something that is more cost effective. It's I've signed up for one to help use for my employees as a benefit for them, and I've talked to other employers, and we've all got the same issue is the telehealth system. In many cases, if you look at it, you can pay $120 a year and like $1 per visit, and they can help about 95% of the time with almost any issues you may have. I know this goes off your topic a little bit about funding. If that's kind of a simple question, yes, we're required to pay for this, and yes, we're going to have to cut or find the money from somewhere. But I think as a state, we have to look at outside the box. We have to figure out a solution to the problem, which is people need affordable health care, and the government needs to take a less role in this as possible, but allow the open market for insurance companies, allow people to get into or show them how to access telehealth, and where people they don't have to leave their house. They can access a medical professional 24/7 and from their home. And this allows them to, and they can call in prescriptions for them. And I think that would be a great benefit for everyone if we spent time trying to find a solution to this problem, which is the healthcare problem.
All right. As a follow-up, have you personally spoken with any of the hospital providers in House District 20 about this matter? And if so, what did they say? If you do not support State Question 802, what other alternative plans will you bring to the table to ensure quality health care is accessible and affordable for Oklahomans?
Okay. I do have a couple of friends that are in the medical profession, and they are for this. And of course, my explanation is that it's expensive, and now we have to find a way to pay it. So what do we take away from? Where do we get the money from to pay for this? And of course, what I just talked about, which was using alternatives. I mean, I don't know why the state of Oklahoma, we can't try to find a way to get more insurance providers in here to allow access to better health insurance plans, break it down so that anyone can access it at an inexpensive rate, transparency in the healthcare profession itself, so that we can see prices, or people can see prices up front, whether you have insurance or you don't have insurance. Also using the telehealth system to help cut down on cost. I mean, if you think about $120 and as little as $1, I know it's a little more expensive depending on what you're calling for, but or texting or FaceTiming for, but about $1 per visit. And those are great ways of someone being able to save money. If I've got a cold and I don't want to drive an hour to a doctor's visit, and I can reach them and they can call in a prescription down the street, then I can have it picked up, and I've just saved myself a substantial amount of money. The doctor visit, I'm not paying for that. I'm not spending the fuel to drive all the way in there. And so that's all costs that will help them in the long run. And I think they're all important, and we have to try things out. I mean, that's just like anything. When you have a business, when you have anything in life, not everything works. I've tried a lot of different advertising through the years, and not all of them work. But you don't know that until you try it and you work through it and you try to experiment to see what does work. And we have to look at everything as an option, put everything on the table. And because the problem I think that we have a lot of times is we don't really try to find solutions or look outside the box. We just try to follow into this cookie cutter program, as raise taxes or cut an agency somewhere, and that seems to be beginning and end of most conversations. So.
All right, thank you. Representative Conley?
Thank you. Yeah, this is definitely an issue, especially in House District 20. Pauls Valley Hospital closed down. You know, I was there during several of the rallies trying to raise money to try to stop that. I've had conversations with the administrators there. I've talked to Patty Davis, the director of the Oklahoma Hospital Association. We have some wonderful people in the House and in the Senate who have worked very, very hard on this issue, trying to come up with a solution that would not change our Constitution. And I think that, you know, as soon as things come about on June 30th and we know whether or not it's passed, then like I said before, the work will begin on finding funding for it. I'm hoping that maybe there are some things that will take place with Indian gaming that maybe we can use to fund it. I think that if it doesn't pass, if 802 doesn't pass, I think that we need to go back, work with the governor, ask him to go ahead and refile for the waiver and put in place what we had originally worked on as a legislature. We had a plan, we had it funded through a shop fee. The hospitals and all of the stakeholders with the Healthcare Authority had agreed upon the terms for the funding for the program. And so, you know, like I said, we've got some great people at the House and in the Senate working on these issues, and they do look outside the box. This isn't just a, we're going to have to cut something, you know, conversation. They've done everything. They've come to the table with all of the stakeholders and all of the people involved, hospitals and doctors associations. They've done the hard work. They've done the heavy lifting. And we had a program ready to pass it, and we lost our funding through veto. So once 802 passes, then we'll go back to the table and we'll start all over again, and I'm sure we'll find a solution.
Thank you. Tensions across our nation and our state are high regarding the term defunding the police. There's confusion in the public surrounding the choice of words with this movement. According to the proponents of this movement, the term defunding the police means reallocating or redirecting some funding away from a local police department to other local governmental agencies that are funded by a local municipality. How do you propose to highlight fiscal responsibility and reduce police violence within local police departments while still reducing crime and ensuring that our communities are safe? Representative Conley, we'll start with you.
Yeah, this is a very touchy subject. You know, I stand behind law enforcement. Like I said before, you know, I did a lot of studying in college on law enforcement and criminal justice and those sort of things. And I've worked very closely with the Sheriff's Association, the FOP, and that sort of thing on legislation. And I stand with the police. What I find is that we need to make sure that through CLEAT, which is the training program for law enforcement officers, we need to make sure that that training is being done before they ever hit the streets. One of the things that I really wanted to work on in my first session, and I actually passed I didn't get it passed, but I filed a piece of legislation to try to make sure that our police officers don't hit the streets until they've been through CLEAT training. We have a lot of our smaller districts or a lot of smaller municipalities, and actually some of our bigger ones, they hire someone and they don't put them through training until about 6 weeks. They put them out in a police car and put them out on the streets without even any training. And I don't understand that. You know, that's kind of like putting our emergency certified teachers in the classrooms without their proper training. So I think that we need to go back to the training and the education that we do with our police officers and make sure that they have the training that they need. And I think that, you know, using that term defunding, I wish that they would have really done a better job of their messaging, because I understand what they're saying. They feel like that there needs to be sensitivity training and awareness and things like that. I mean, that's the hardest job on the planet as far as I'm concerned. And so we need to make sure that they are properly trained and not take money away from the police departments, but just make sure that they are properly trained through the state. I mean, the state pays for the CLEAT training anyway. So we just need to up that and make sure that we're doing what we need to do to ensure that they are completely 100% trained. before they ever hit the streets.
Mr. Herberger?
Certainly, we shouldn't be defunding the police department. If anything, we should be increasing money into the police department, just like Ms. Collins was talking about in the training. That's correct. There should be training and whatever training that's necessary in order for them to understand the areas that they're working in, that they are part of the community, and that's where, as a police force, they should look to recruit from kids or men that have grown up in the area and use them or hire them and have them used in those specific areas. Because I think that's sometimes where things get lost in translation. Someone from the area would definitely benefit the police officer and the community. People would feel comfortable with them. The police would feel comfortable with someone going in there and understanding the area well and what goes on in the area. Defunding the police department and actually not in reducing police officers. I watch the news, and there are areas that they don't want any police officers. I mean, it's chaos. And you have a group of people that when they get a call, they don't ask, who the person is. They don't ask, are they Democrat or the Republican? Do they like police officers? Do they not like police officers? What color are they before they run into harm's way? And I think that they've been a scapegoat, and that to all the world's problems, it seems like, and certainly there are issues. I mean, there's no questions that the police officer in Minnesota was wrong for what he was doing, and rightfully so punished for that. I mean, but I think the interactions for almost all police officers, or for most of them, are very positive, and that we have to, as a society, understand that what the complaint is and address the complaint and try to do it with a dialogue, not with a destructive manner.
All right.
Is my time up? Sorry.
Yeah. House District 20 encompasses a very large area, including several small cities. Unfortunately, this district is drawn to split the Noble and Pauls Valley communities in half, technically giving you only the rural portions. However, the success of these school districts that you will represent cannot be separated from the success of the commerce in the towns they serve. How do you plan to encourage businesses to come to the smaller cities attached to House District 20, seeing that we cannot provide the same level of financial incentives as the larger surrounding cities? Mr. Herberger, we'll start with you.
Well, that was kind of an answer to my earlier question where I had talked about bringing manufacturing into Oklahoma, bringing companies into Oklahoma. I mean, if you think about reaching out to these companies in California, New York, where they have, it's very expensive to operate, and bringing them here and allowing businesses, that helps all the small communities in our district because they'll have additional workforce, additional money coming in because of this. And secondly is obviously small business. We have to make sure that we try to focus as much as we can on each community patronizing their own community's businesses. What's happened, I think Amazon's become quite easy for everyone to use to shop from. It's the new Sears. You used to get everything from a catalog from Sears years ago. But what happens to that is that each one of these little businesses in these towns, it destroys them. Because if I can click on a button in my office and get that item that I might be able to get it from a local place, and I get it from Amazon, they're kind of biting the hand that feeds them, I guess you could say. So they have to, I think as a community, we have to focus on our relationship in town with our own businesses and help build those up. And you have to show that in community events and making sure that everyone understands the importance of these businesses. That visiting them and using the tax dollars, just like I live in Blanchard, and I go to Ace Hardware as much as I possibly can. not advertising for anybody. I'm just trying to say that
15 seconds.
that's because it is a local business versus going to a Home Depot. And again, I'm not against Home Depot, but I'm just saying that's an option.
All right. Representative Conley? Oh, Representative Conley, hold on one moment. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. This
Okay,
question came up 2 years ago, and I really did not know how to answer that question. But what I have learned over the last 2 years is how important our local chambers of commerce are. Newcastle has just recently, they have hired, the city of Newcastle has hired someone from the chamber to actually do economic development. And so I would encourage all of our towns to work on economic development, work with the Oklahoma Municipal League and some of the agencies that are already established in the state that actually help with this sort of issue that we're having in the smaller towns. Noble especially, right there off of just outside of Norman, makes it very, very difficult. And then it being off the highway. Purcell, Pauls Valley, those towns are right there off the highway. But, of course, we've got other ones that are way out in the middle of nowhere, Wanette and Byers and Asher, and, those areas need it as well. And so I would encourage involvement with the chambers and encouraging them to work on economic development. There are actually businesses that they can and agencies that they can partner with that will help them come up with an economic plan. Goldsby is a really great example of, they've put a plan together, they've got a map, they know where they're going. And I think that is something that is extremely important in our small towns for them to decide, where do we want to go and what do we want our town to look like. And so working with the city council, chamber, and community leaders in order to come up with a plan, I think is something that actually needs to happen. Yeah.
Thank you. This is our last question. Community involvement is a high expectation of Noble citizens for our elected officials. If elected, what is your plan to increase your presence in Noble, and would you commit to monthly meetings with our chamber and business owners to address the specific needs of our business community? Representative Conley, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, during session, it's very hard for me to get out there, but I do come to the chamber lunches, and I've been to football games. I haven't been able to make any of the basketball games because that happens right around the time we're getting ready to go back into session. And so my plan is to do a better job of getting out into the community. One of the things that I do make sure that I do is make myself available to my constituents. I have my Facebook page. I have my email and my telephone number, obviously, for my office. My LA is always available. There's a lot of my constituents that actually have my cell phone number. I answer emails and I answer Facebook messages and messenger messages late into the night a lot of times, and even on the weekends. I do reserve Sundays for family time, but I do what I can to get out into the community. I love participating in the Christmas. Oh, it is so wonderful in Noble. I love the Christmas program and the Christmas parade and the Rose Rock parade and the festival and all of those things. So yeah, just being involved in the community and getting to know people and showing your face and letting people know that you care. I know that it's very important. And so, yeah, I mean, I'll just continue to do more of the same and do better about getting out there even more in the next 2 years.
Thank you. Mr. Herberger?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would certainly, as I've traveled around during this campaign, listen to a lot of people and all the little towns, and I 100% would go to any one of these communities once a month or twice a month. And I think a lot of mistakes that are made from politicians is they will not take the time to listen to necessarily the constituents. And I'm not meaning this towards Mrs. Conley. I'm just saying overall, they get wrapped up, I think, in what goes on overall, and forgets the fact that each one of these constituents in these areas, I don't have the answer to every one of these questions or everybody's needs. I've learned as I go out there things that essentially, for a better term, aren't in my wheelhouse. Things that I've never experienced in my personal life that someone's telling me they're going through. Well, I don't have a solution for this at this point, but my job is to try to help them find a solution to the problem, or at least be able to explain to the individual or the family or the person, this is why the state is unable to do this, or this is what we can or can't do. But listening to people, I think, is a really important part of the job as being a legislature for everyone, because it's important to listen and learn and be able to take what information you get. And some people like to, talk quite a bit and just want to complain. And so sometimes you just listen and let them
15
complain
seconds.
and go from there. So.
All right. We have finished with our question portion, and now we will give each of you 2 minutes for a closing statement, closing remarks. Once the forum is over, we'd ask that the two of you please remain online so we can talk about a few technical things before we fully sign off. Mr. Herberger, if you would like to go first with your closing statement.
Sure. I certainly appreciate Noble for putting this on and inviting myself. I've enjoyed the questions from everyone, and I appreciate everybody's participation in this, including Mrs. Conley. I hope that to get everyone's vote, or as many people as possible's vote on June 30th. The election's coming up here pretty quick. I think, 7 days? So it's about time to cast that vote. And I've enjoyed the experience so far. And I just want to say good luck to Mrs. Conley as well. We hopefully will have a good race, and one of us will win, obviously.
Obviously. Mhm.
All right, Representative Conley.
Well, when I started this race in 2018, one of the things that was very important to House District 20 was transparency and approachability. And so one of the things that I have tried to bring to this office was making sure that I was available to everyone in whatever way that they needed to or could reach out to me. And so I just want everybody to know that I will continue over the next 2 years to be available to you. I will listen, find solutions to the issues that you have, and get you to the right place. There have been so many people that have reached out and had problems with their unemployment. That has really been a challenge for our office, but my LA, Mariah, has been amazing and has done a really good job of taking care of everybody. And so I just encourage anybody who's got problems, issues that they're facing, to please make sure that you're reaching out to me on Facebook or to my office to allow us to continue helping you. And in 2018, when the teachers brought their collective voices together, I knew it was time for me to step up. I had told my husband in 2015 that I was going to run for office someday, but it wasn't the right time. I was working on my master's degree. And so when 2018 came, teachers came out. Our previous representatives said that they needed to be teaching and back in the classroom. And, that was my sign that it was time for me to step up. So I did. I'm asking for the opportunity to continue that work. We've started 2 years ago. We've done some really good things, but we're not finished yet. And so I'm asking once again for everyone's vote to send me back to the Capitol on Tuesday, June 30th. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for joining us today. We'd like to take a moment and remind everybody that this is the final election for House District 20. So it's very important that you get out on June 30th and that you cast your vote for this office. Thank you all so much for joining us. And We appreciate the two of you giving us your time this afternoon and taking the time to answer our questions. And constituents of House District 20, we encourage you, if you have questions after this forum, please, this will be posted on our YouTube channel. It will be posted on our Facebook page. Ask those questions. I know that both of these individuals are going to be looking at those comments. They would be more than happy to answer your questions. So if you're uncertain about something, ask.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Bye.